Welcome to the Workforce Resources for Libraries video series. This is brought to you by Project Compass, a partnership of WebJunction and the State Library of North Carolina, and it is made possible by a grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. This is the fifth in the series of short presentations by Pat Wagner, educator, trainer, writer, and consultant with Pattern Research. Pat has worked for and with libraries of all kinds, plus library boards, foundations, friends groups, and national, state, and regional library organizations. We are very fortunate to have Pat's expertise to share with us.
Thank you. One of the things that we want to talk about today are the fact that not only are library users stressed out, but the staff that waits on library users is stressed as well. If you're living in a community where people are losing their jobs, businesses are closing, people are worried about losing their homes, the family farm, those kinds of stresses are going to also impact the people who work in the library because it's their families and friends and neighbors who are also being stressed out. What I'd like to present to you is a model on stress management that I first developed a number of years ago for a major corporation. And the research that we did at the time was very interesting because it pointed out the fact that most of the research that's done on stress is about respite, meaning those times where we just pause to let our muscles and our mind relax before we go on to the big challenge. But what we found out is that we needed a lot more than that. So first of all, we're going to discuss briefly some of the kinds of stresses that both library users and library staff are experiencing these days, and then talk about a four-part model that has to do with anticipating stress, knowing that tomorrow's going to be a difficult day no matter what you have planned, to look at that idea of respite and use it into, turn it into something you can use in your workplace to make it easier to stretch and relax even in a busy day, to really think about the idea of repairing from some of the stressful issues that people are dealing with, like the loss of a job, the loss of a home, family and friends who are also under terrible pressure. And finally, this idea of prevention. What kind of choices are we making? And again, what can we anticipate so that we can do a better job? And finally, this is something that you can do in your library regardless of how to make health your priority. So what's different about this part of the 21st century? Almost every place I go, libraries are telling me we are overwhelmed with people who have needs. Our circuit usage figures are up 300 to 500%. People are waiting in line when we open the doors and they don't leave till late at night. And I hear the word overwhelmed over and over again. The people who come in are there because they're desperate. We also have stresses because a lot of bad habits have caught up with us, and this is specifically addressing to people who work in libraries. If you're not good at getting enough sleep, if you're not eating the right things, if you're not exercising, if you're not taking care of yourself, there comes a time when it starts impacting your health and your focus, and you have to make changes. It's not just about what you think you should do at the moment. It's about sitting down and actually having a plan about what you should be doing differently. I know my husband and myself have changed our diet over 30 years, and where we once would go out for pizzas and fried chicken, where the house was filled with yummy snacks to make working out of our home easier, as one of our neighbors told us a couple of years ago when she came to visit, she said, "You don't have any food in your house, all you have is ingredients." And those ingredients have allowed us to do things better. Another part has to do with the relative age of people who are seeking help at libraries. I'm old enough to remember the recession of the late 70s and early 80s, where here in Denver County, 1/3 of the homes were boarded up, and we led the nation in business foreclosures and personal and business bankruptcies. People who have just entered the workplace in the last 20 or 25 years have never experienced a bad recession before. And even though at the recording of this program, the national government was saying, yeah, I think we're out of this recession, the truth is that it's not going to be a quick fix for anyone out there. Human emotions are contagious, and the kind of despair and hopelessness that a lot of people feel kind of rubs off on folks. So if you're working at a library where people are coming in because they're desperate, it's going to affect you no matter how good or prosperous you feel when you walk into work that day. And finally, a lot of the anger people feel really is about fear and grief. And I think of grief as kind of the secret damage that happens to people, that people don't realize that that sense of loss that we have because of a loss of job, a loss of status, the fact that we have to make, in some cases, really terrible changes in our life just to, keep our nose above water, that there are people who never had to worry about being homeless before, that people feel that they've worked their whole lives for something that's now gone. Grief is an emotion that's real and can have real impact on people in a way that I don't think that they're ready to deal with. So what can we do for people and for ourselves? Well, the first thing I have to tell you is I've got bad news. A lot of the folks I know who work in libraries are real go-getters, very conscientious, and they're used to working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, particularly since their libraries are often short-staffed now. So a lot of folks are working for no pay, coming in weekends, staying late, which means that they are not making the time for themselves. In fact, they feel guilty if they make time for themselves. Here's the rule of thumb in the research that I did. If you know that tomorrow's going to be a stressful day, you have to spend the night before or the day before investing back in yourself. It might mean exercise, having fun with a friend, going outside and playing with your dog, going and baking cakes if baking cakes relax you, having a hobby like crocheting or knitting, or painting toy soldiers, listening to music, reading a book. All these kinds of things are a way of relaxing your body. I'm a big fan, by the way, of bubble baths. The thing is that whatever you do can't just be a 5-minute fix. Even if you need to give yourself an hour and you want to do 2 or 3 different things, each of those things you do have to be done in a minimum of 20-minute sessions to really have impact. If you really don't know what to do, laughter helps. Studies have shown that laughter can activate the brain, and good humor works as well as studying. So this is a time where you might want to click in that funny, good-humored movie or read that funny book or call up a friend that you can always share jokes with. I have to remind people that watching television and movies in themselves aren't necessarily restful to the brain. Some studies have shown that watching TV can actually fool the brain into thinking that it's resting or sleeping, except it doesn't have the benefits of rest or sleep. If you're tired, go to bed. And finally, particularly for the women, but also for the men who are watching this today, please avoid the idea that you can't take care of yourself because you have other people that you have to take care of. It's kind of like being on the airline. You put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can help other people. So what if you're pretty good at those big bites? How about those little bites? Well, one thing to do is to think about the rhythm of your day. And one of the best ways to do respite is to take a 2-minute break once every hour. Now, let's say you're standing up working at a service desk. That means that you can twitch your toes, that you can bend your knees, that you can circle your ankles, that you can do something, even if you're working, that stretches or relaxes that part of the body. If you are in a workplace that allows people to snack, and most of the people I know in libraries are, I want you to have healthy snacks. And that doesn't mean chocolate 8 times a day, but does mean is eating something that's healthy protein, complex carbohydrates like fresh fruit and vegetables are always ideal at 2-hour intervals to keep your blood sugar level. Great way to protect your body from damage. Now, the cat stretch is something that I learned from my first kitty, Ginger, and every one of the 45 cats who have shared my household since then. And for those of you who have a cat or a dog, it's a fun game to play that every time your animal stretches, you stretch too. Trust me, you're going to realize you're not going to be able to keep up. But you can do cat stretches at work where you do all the things you can to stretch and relax every set of muscles you have. Some of these you might want to do in the privacy of the restroom, but it's a way of relaxing during the day. I want you, at the end of a busy day at your library, to feel like you've had a good day at the beach, where every muscle feels relaxed, tired, and worked, not the kind of exhaustion you feel from having sat in the same chair all day with no chance to stretch or move. If you know that you're going to be in a very stressful workplace, I suggest that people create laugh or humor folders where you collect books, articles, connections to URLs, anything that's good-humored fun that you can put away for the times you really need it, kind of like clicking the glass on that fire alarm when you have to pull the axe or the hose out to save yourself. Laugh folders are something you put aside as a special treat when you feel overwhelmed. I think people should dance it off, and I love the fact that we have all those kind of computer games that get people up and moving around. If I was queen of the world, I would make dancing a requirement at every library in North America. And finally, when you're doing respite, don't skip your breaks. And if you happen to be a manager or a director in some kind of leadership position, I want you to take your breaks to grab a couple of people from your staff and walk around the block or walk around the building or walk up and down the stairs or go and tell funny stories in the break room. Set a good example so that people understand that breaks are important. After a long time, the body breaks down, and it can be a long time for some of us. And when we're stressed out, as most of us are in the current economy, we don't realize how much damage we're doing physically, emotionally to ourselves just from the pressure we feel all the time. So there's 3 things that we have found really help to repair the damage that's already there. The first thing is silence. That there is some evidence that silence allows the heart to repair itself and allows the heart and all of the systems of the body to relax. I'm not talking about listening to music. I'm not talking about talking to a friend. I'm not talking about meditation. Most people listening to this program live within a 30-minute to an hour drive of the country, of a place where you can be with natural sounds if you want, but not necessarily with somebody talking to you or any music. If necessary, it means going into your car and rolling up the windows and maybe turning on the air conditioner so there's some sort of white noise going on. But what we need is silence. The second thing is sleep. My best definition of enough sleep is that you're able to wake up naturally without an alarm clock, and your dog throwing up on the bed does not count. Sleep is the only time that the body repairs itself at the cellular level, meaning that if you have an injury of some kind, if you've been exercising a lot, or you're recovering from a bacterial or a viral infection, that's how the body repairs the damage that's been done. In addition, it's when you're sleeping, and only when you're sleeping, that you're producing certain kinds of white blood cells that fight off disease and infection. So if you're sick, go to bed. If you're tired, go to bed. It's not about watching television, it's not about listening music, and it's not even about reading a book. It's about how much sleep you get. Finally, for a lot of the people who are angry and upset and fearful about what's been happening in the economy and the world the last few years, there is a grieving process that says, let's make sense of what's going on. The Dr. Warden, who invented the process, has us think of the work that we need to do to get through grief and to make it make sense. And it takes time. If you have been in a really stressful workplace for 2 years, you're not going to recover in a day. And to quote my mother, if you are bitter, they won. So being able to look at the future and think positively is a big part of helping people understand stress and stress management. Finally, it really is about the future. And there are a couple of tricks that I learned when I was doing career counseling and guidance at the State College that I'd like to share with you. One thing is that we're all too close to ourselves. And I'm not suggesting that you go into therapy, but a good way to understand what kind of choices you've been making and how to make better choices is to, in effect, write your own biography. Write your autobiography about your work and what kind of jobs you had and why you took the jobs and what was important to you, and sit down with a close friend, someone who likes you, and look for patterns. I've had people suddenly realize that every job they ever had in their life, they chose to please their family, or that every job they ever took in their life really was the safer choice, but meant that they had less pay and less opportunity. Or they took a job and kept the job because they thought they ought to, rather than really thinking about how to learn and grow. Also, listen to yourself about what we call self-limiting belief systems. When people say, I never can do something or I can't do something, the brain hears everything and can stop you from even thinking about choices that you can make. A lot of studies show that people who are able to say, I take responsibility for the choices I make, people who stop blaming other people for those choices tend to feel less stress and also tend to be better at making decisions. If you're always blaming other people for what happens to you in life, it becomes a big distraction. It really comes down to, I need to take better actions in my life, and I have to start by thinking that I'm the one who does the work, not somebody else. We do need other people to kind of cover our blind spots. So having those people in your life who you can talk to is very important. Having quality people in your life, people who are positive, who are successful by their own terms, doesn't mean they have to be rich or famous, who care about you, but more importantly, can listen to you and let you make your choices. You don't want somebody who's the know-it-all who's going to tell you, you know what you ought to be doing with your life. Find people who are good listeners. Being able to deal with these kinds of changes that we're going through in contemporary society is something that you practice. A lot of people who've worked at libraries who I visit have worked in those libraries for many, many years. The same is true of the people who are coming in the front door seeking help. Having to make radical change is something that a lot of people aren't used to. So make little changes at first. Maybe you're going to just change a couple of things about your diet. You're not going to burn down your house and go into the Federal Witness Protection Program tomorrow, but you may decide that, you know what, I'm not going to watch TV so much. I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to start looking for a job that satisfies me more. I'm going to hang out with people who are positive. I'm going to read better quality books. And maybe the next time I decide to take a job, I'll do better research and find out that my director is crazy before I sign the contract, not after. Finally, when you think about the future, it's like an open palette. It's a place where you can paint whatever picture you want to paint. Using adverbs like, what do I want to have happen next? What do I want to have happen instead? And what do I want to have happen despite are ways to literally free up the brain so you can make better choices in the future. Finally, it's about your health. And no matter what else you're doing in your life, who you're responsible for, who you have to care for, and how busy you are, you have to make your health a first priority. I am not impressed by visiting library workplaces where everyone's complaining about, oh, yes, I had to spend until 4 o'clock in the morning to get this done. Well, I had to live here for 3 days because I couldn't get the work done. Poor me, poor me. No, I want people to manage their life by healthy choices rather than have contests about who has done the most work for the least amount of pay. There's all sorts of ways that you can be friendly about promoting health, from exchanging recipes, from inviting somebody to take a walk with you at break. Don't point your finger at people and tell them they're doing the wrong thing. If you look healthy and happy, and if you're enjoying life, that's going to be the best sales pitch you can make to other people. Do what you can. Don't feel like you have to change every single thing in your life. Pick one thing. Isn't it wonderful that you can go to most grocery stores in the country now and find healthy choices to eat? That wasn't true a few years ago. And, when I talk to my mother-in-law, who's in her late 80s, about health practices, she laughs. And she says, well, I grew up in the panhandle of Texas, and my mother was a nutritionist, and we were talking about those things 75 years ago. We've known for a long time that fresh fruits and vegetables, enough sleep, and enough exercise really can help you feel better and think better. And sometimes the old things that we've done for years are sufficient to make ourselves feel better today.
Well, thank you so much, Pat, for those insights. I've been stretching during this whole presentation, and I feel better already. I want to let everyone know that we are building a community of practice for the library staff or library field across the country to help them meet the needs of job seekers and deal with the conditions in tough times. So I encourage everybody to visit the workforce resources section on WebJunction. And if you would like more information about Project Compass, you will find that also in the Project Compass section. The URLs are shown on the screen. And I would like to take the opportunity once more to thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services for making these productions possible. Thank you.